You don't have to be a millennial to be socially savvy. We believe anyone can join Generation Social Media, and your journey starts now. This is the Generation Social Media Podcast by Chatterkick.
Today, we are talking to Michelle Hill. She's one of the ambitious leaders at Revela, and she's been in leadership and development for 15 years. I'll let Michelle tell a little bit more about herself, but I've been fortunate enough to see her development. We've had leaders go through their program at Revela, and I have amazing things to say about that. But what I really want Michelle to talk a little bit today is the workplace, flexibility, what's going to happen after COVID. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. What happens on the flip side? Working remote, I got kids at home, technical difficulties, all of those things that we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's new for a lot of businesses, large, small, all types. And so I think the first question is, can we put that cat in the bag? Michelle, do you think that we'll really be able to go back to the way that things were before the pandemic?
That's a really good question. And one of the things that when you say, put the cat back in the bag, one of the things that I think of, and it's something Andrea at Revela has said in the past, she uses the analogy, it's really difficult to put the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Yeah.
And I think now that we have been forced to do things and really been pushed against the beliefs we've had as a business to work in different ways, it's going to be really hard to go back to what our norm was 6-7 weeks ago. It's something that it's going to look different. I think it's going to look different for everyone and in a lot of different ways on how we do things. Because the other component too is when you think about, we can't unlearn what we've learned or seen, right? Those are experiences. And now that we've pushed people and we've challenged our beliefs, and maybe some things have worked, maybe we have found ways to be successful, and people aren't going to forget that. And how we respond to that I think is what's going to have a huge impact as we move forward on what we look like, because everything in life's a choice. So as a business, you can choose to go back to exactly how you were. That doesn't mean your people are going to forget some of the things that they learned when we were getting by and maybe even being more efficient and challenging how we got work done. If we don't consider what some of those changes might be and how that might change our business model.
Yeah. And don't you think of like the perfect example of this is, I'm using a fictitious business, but like that corporate business that always had employees come and say, can we work remote? Can we work remote? And everybody's like, no remote, no remote. And then all of a sudden everybody's working remote and business is going on as usual. And what if your business is actually doing really well? Or what if things are going very smoothly? I think it's really hard. And as a business owner to be like, well, every reason why I said no now is no longer on the table. So now what? What other challenges do you see businesses facing with this besides just that, like, remote, not remote?
Yeah, well, and even that remote, not remote, a business, with what's been going on that we have no control over, it's impacting every business in different ways. More than less are probably not having a positive impact with. But it's not about looking at as the business successful during this time. I think when looking at that remote concept, it's, are we more efficient? Does it give us some flexibility? Does it help us, help our employees? Are we more attractive to, draw in new employees? So I even think, like, even removing, if someone says, were we successful during it? We might not have been because of everything that's out of our control. But our employees and their productivity and how they feel about working for the business, that was maybe more productive. That was maybe actually successful, right? So I think we measure success differently. And it's important in these times when we are, the flip side of where we are right now, when we go back in, I think it's important that we don't just ignore that. So kind of going to your question, challenges, the different challenges that other businesses are facing or going to be facing, right? I think when we think about a business, it's our employees, it's the leader's mindset. excuse me, the belief, that the fear and the unknown, things we can't control, how that's impacted our people. And we can go back to that one because that's a big one.
Yeah.
Physical safety. So challenges, we work with different companies. Some are still going in, some are still, in production, and some are still working, but, like we talked about, in a different workplace, at home, and then those different challenges. But it's that the psychological safety as well as the physical safety, and looking at what are we going to be doing, how are we going to work differently and be successful as we move forward, because that's the sanitation piece of it, the health piece of it. And get into that piece, you're getting into fear, the feelings, that's going to come back around, right? And then you're also going to be getting into what policies and procedures, what are our new norms and how we work, everything from our public spaces to walking in the hallways to the cafeteria, right? I mean, all those things. And maybe we're addressing them right now. Maybe we're addressing them right now in smaller numbers. What about when everyone's back? What about when vendors come in? What about when you got vendors, you may have guests, and you may have applicants? How is that going to be different when we talk about that physical safety?
Right.
Sales environments. Let's think about this. I mean, you and I both kind of hang out there a little bit, right? And what's happening right now with how are we mining our, getting our referrals? How are we getting new businesses? How do we network? How do we get new donors? Everything from the for-profit to nonprofit.
Right.
I think that's a huge challenge, and truly believe that the things that we're doing today are going to have an impact on when we do get, that other side of things, is going to impact that sales and where our business is. But how do we move forward with that one? Obviously, supply chain. You've got the essential versus non-essential businesses that are running versus not running. And just having this conversation yesterday with someone from construction industry, and they were talking about their fear is they have a lot of business on hold. Totally normal. Maybe they're finishing up some small projects and things, but they have bigger things that they're not going to start yet. They're on hold until we move forward. And their fear isn't about not having that business. Their fear is, are they going to have what they need to do to build the building? What about the supplies, right? And I think technology is another challenge that we're going to have in businesses. I think we are working our way through it and learning it. So it kind of goes back to how do we unlearn it? So the things that we've learned and how to utilize technology and get better and help us build the business. I think that's going to be a challenge, because probably a lot of organizations in different ways have found ways to be successful with technology that they didn't before, right? The beliefs. And now what are we going to do with that? So I think that's a huge piece of the different things that people are having to work through as they are currently today, and as they're thinking about going back, bringing business back in.
Right. Do you feel like, I mean, you guys work with a lot of business owners and family-owned businesses. Do you see a lot of businesses really embracing this time? I mean, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, but embracing this time to really work on their business instead of in their business, in terms of some of these things you were mentioning, technology, communication, just like operating systems? Or do you feel like that's a big opportunity that a lot of businesses have?
I believe that it's a blend. It can go both ways, right? So the first couple weeks, we think about fear and how our brain processes danger. And we will typically, in danger occurs, we don't truly understand, is it physical danger or not, right? So we'll go into that fight or flight. And during the first couple weeks, there's a lot of fear, and business owners reacted differently in regards to fight or flight. Some just backed off, going to wait and hold. We're going to be right back into things. We're not going to adjust. And some I'm going to use the fight kind of thing, because I think it's that hunger, to keep the business going. Some have stepped back and said, whoa, our initiatives, our strategic plan, and what we are focusing on for 2020, it's different. And I'm not waiting. I'm not going to hope we come back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that we're going to be looking at really what's in our control over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and have adjusted what their strategic plan is and where their people should be focusing on the immediate 30 days on what they can foresee, because there's a lot of unknowns still, right? But they've adjusted that and they've redirected their goals and helping their employees be more productive. Where I believe the flip side is you're going to have their other businesses that haven't really reevaluated it and made those adjustments and communicated that effectively to the front line. People are still trying to do business as they've been doing business because a lot of people are running at a slower speed, but not necessarily adjusting with our time, that how is it spent differently and where should our focus be in reprioritizing our focus from what it was to what it should be today. And that with that reprioritization, where we reprioritize where we spend our time.
Yeah.
So
I read this quote and it's just stuck with me through this whole epidemic crisis mentality is it's, are you adapting to cope or are you adapting to win? And like that quote stuck out to me. I'm like, I have to be on the winning side of this. And it kind of flipped my brain from that fear and like almost feeling overwhelmed with so much that you can't do anything to like flip it and say, okay, am I going to go? Let's go. And I think that it's interesting to watch different businesses and how they react. Another question that I think a lot of people have, and especially business owners, that this whole remote world is new. And, I think there's different degrees of that because some businesses have had some remote individuals, but they may have not had remote people in a crisis mentality. They may have not had remote like us with all of our children home. It's very different. So, what's your first tip to businesses? Because the fear is, how do I know people are actually working? Like if I don't have widgets being made, where do I even start with this without like coming in hot and being like, how much are you working today? Or like chatting things that feel disrespectful.
yes. Well, one of the things we initially just started doing when all this happened was reaching out to our customers to have this exact conversation. Because when we are talking about taking people out of their work environment and now I'm going to call it, it's an interesting experiment of taking work and home and shoving it together. And it's truly all home and all work happening at the same time. Because again, everyone, people have children, different ages of children, their situations are so different in everyone's homes that we wanted to reach out and have the conversations with, okay, let's get everyone technical information they need to work from home, right? Once they are up and running, now it's really important for us to believe in good intentions, that everyone in our team has good intentions to do the best they can for our organization. So it starts with our belief system, right? And we have to give them trust that they are going to be doing everything they can to be their best based off this situation. And to help reduce the assumptions, to help reduce the unknown, right? We as leaders, we need to be talking to our people, having individual conversations and saying, okay, let's figure out what is your world like? Because everyone's world, we got to reduce assumptions, right? Everyone's world's different. Some people are having to figure out how to do third grade math and tutor their child or go onto a Zoom with a teacher.
Yeah.
God bless them, to maybe working at home with a spouse who maybe you both have never worked from home. Whew, that's a collision. Maybe one has worked from home and the other one now is invading their space. Everything is so different. So it's about, let's just talk about this elephant that is, we're here. Life is not normal right now. We want you to be successful. We believe in you. We trust you. So let's talk about what your environment looks like. Let's talk about how we can help a little bit, how we communicate with each other, so then we can help you be the best you can be when you're there. And having those conversations and then, getting that better understanding and then having the conversations that help prioritize where they should be spending their time, what are the most important things that they should be doing, are the two key things that we've been coaching our clients with through this, and really helping them identify too that these conversations, let's become more virtual. So we've been challenging the technology piece with our clients, and let's not hold back. If we were going to be going through an employee, its annual reviews or whatever it may be, or one-on-ones, if we have our one-on-ones with our employees, don't stop. The communication has got to be elevated. We have to increase our communication, do it more often, do it ahead of the game, and create transparency for our team. So they, as they're working through fear and in the unknown in their personal lives, they have, it's not going to say it's normal, but they have a little bit of normalcy and understanding of where the business is. It's about being brutally honest. This is what's going on. This is what we see happening with our customers, right? How that impacts our business and what we should be prioritizing, what we're working on.
Yeah.
And just creating that clarity for them helps reduce. And knowing that you are there for them through this is huge, because they're not going to forget whatever we choose to do as a business leader, owner, however we choose to respond and interact with our employees. At the end of this, on the flip side, they're not going to forget how we made them feel. And either we made them feel important, valued, that you were doing as an owner or, a CEO, you're doing everything you can to, help everyone move this ship in the direction of the uncertain, the unknown. And you had their back and you were helping them, or you did nothing. Right. And, at that flip side, that is going to make a huge difference in how you all come back together, how you trust each other, and how you work together. And that piece was, I think, is huge as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, I love what you said there. One of the things that I still use after talking to you guys and learning this from your methodology, it's just that when you said, believe that everybody has good intentions, because it really is hard when you're in the middle of something and you have chats coming in all day, emails, your kids are popping in, and like telling yourself those stories in your head and putting all the assumptions in there, like you may read into something way more than it really is being read into. And I always love that you guys say that, because it really is like taking a step back and be like, this person is really trying. They're trying to figure out the right information. Maybe a mistake was made, but they made it with good intentions. And then there's a coaching opportunity there. I also like the communication with clarity and just transparency. I think one of the biggest things we've seen in the kind of communication world, external and internal, but when you're really talking about internal, is just the lack of communication inward to your employees, not just one time, one email sent, but that constant conversation, because little fires are spreading within your employees. And it's really important to address it head on. One thing that we did is we had like a COVID queue. This is really a couple weeks ago when there was just a ton of questions coming in, and I could tell that people were a little nervous. And we just put a anonymous survey tool out there. We sent it to our employees. We even recorded it for them to show them that it was anonymous on the background, because we have a very tech savvy organization, and really letting them just ask. And we answered honestly and openly. And a lot of the things we didn't have the answers to, but at least they knew that we didn't have the answers to them. And it wasn't like we were holding something back or, we were trying to hide something from anybody, because that was definitely not our intention. But we just, it's that frequency of communication, just like in advertising, just as much as it is about how much you do it. Like one time, great. No, you got to keep communicating. And I also love what you said about how you feel. Like people will remember how you feel. I think there's a lot of organizations that have had to furlough their employees. They've had to do layoffs. But the difference between the way that you approach it and say it makes the world of difference. So that is so true. It's that empathy. It's that feeling that probably trumps a lot of the actuals, right? Like even if they had to take a pay cut.
We're all in this together, right? If it's one of, so there's been so many different initiatives in regards to how businesses are responding to people taking, a week, a month of unpaid vacation that you're taking off. So it's basically a pay cut, right? Or just everyone's pay is reduced by 20% or 30% or whatever. When it's all of us, it's that feeling of we're all in this together and we're going to get through this. And when people start having that feeling that, wow, it's all of us, it's not just certain people, it just builds that dedication and belief in the business and the people that you work with. And it changes people's attitudes. And yeah, people are still fearful and things are going on, but they feel so much better when they know we're all in this together and we're we're going to do everything we all can do to get through it. I think is huge. And that survey, I love that idea of that survey, how you had that set up. And yeah, your team is tech savvy, so I'm sure you had to do everything because you want them to, you just want them to feel safe, right?
Right.
And
It is. It's that safety.
yeah, and that safety is huge. And the more often we can get feedback from our employees, which that's probably the most recent thing we've been coaching with our clients, is having the conversations with your people. So, you've got those initial steps of rolling into this new, and we're going to have another new, right? But as that was happening, taking time to get feedback from your employees, just on you personally, on your communication and how you're doing. And Marshall Goldsmith, he has a book called Triggers, and we've, in that book, he has a process to get feedback. It's very simple and it's so easy to use. It's simply asking your employees, hey, I want to make sure that I'm being at my best in providing you what you need. So I want to get some feedback, and tell me, based off how I've been communicating, keeping you in the know, keeping you included, and how we've been, as transparent as we believe we are. I want to know how you feel, right? Get your perception, which is like what you were doing there with that survey. Because I want to give you a voice, and I want to be able to then understand where you're coming from and be able to do something with it and be better. And you simply ask 3 questions. It's what have I been doing, in this case, the past 6 weeks, what have I been doing that you have found helpful, that you have found that it's a value and you want me to continue doing? What have I been doing that maybe has been irritating? Maybe it causes you to feel frustrated, or like, maybe I don't trust you, whatever that may be. What is it that I should stop doing now, right? And what ideas do you have on things that I haven't been doing, or the organization, that you think we should start doing? So it's that continue, stop, and start. And the more you can be proactive and have the dialogue with your employees, it's just continuing to build that trust and honesty between the two of you, and supporting that whole concept that we're all in this together, and we're gonna get through it. And to do that, I'm not perfect. There's things that maybe I don't think of or don't see, and if you're thinking of it, I want to know. Or if I'm doing something that's driving you crazy, I want to know, so I don't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so you can take it from that, the anonymous survey approach, and then even take it down to just those individual conversations. I truly believe that the people that are doing some of the right things right now, whether the employee was furloughed or not, and let's say they come back, or the employee wasn't furloughed, if you're doing some of those great things of staying connected and getting feedback, when this is all said and done, your relationship with those people, with your team, is going to be so much stronger. You're going to be so much better as a result of it. And it's what work are we putting in? Put the work in right now to get those results later, and it will pay off.
Yeah, I love that. And I really think that those 3 survey questions are valuable for people, because they are looking for, how do I say it? What do I say? I think vulnerability is such a hard thing as a leader. And, but I think it's probably the first step, would you agree, of just like pure connection? Because if people can see you for who you really are, I think, and see that you're not always, the boss, and you're also trying to juggle all these things, I would assume that would really lead to a deeper connection, and hopefully respect both ways.
Completely. Well, it's what it's doing, by you're relatable. They can relate to you now. You're human. Gosh, we have some things in common, right? And the more we can, connect, the further we are building that trust in those relationships, and it's only going to end up, with positive things as a result. So yeah, that is number one. And right now, that's where it's like that transparency. It's so critical that we are saying what's really happening. And, we might not like it, but if I need to hear it, right? And what it is we're doing and how we're responding to that, and seeking ideas from employees and ideas they may have on how to respond to certain things. Because I even think, kind of going back to the sales environment, and how are people really, building the new business right now, right? And how are people, whether it's new business donors, whatever it may be, we need to get feedback from our salespeople on what are other ways that we can be creative, and make sure that we're staying connected with our existing clients and building those relationships, and what are ways that we're going to be able to get new business different than what we did before. Because yes, in Iowa and in Nebraska, we are slowly starting those initial phases to start pushing, going back into normal business, to be the new normal. I think we'll have a phases of the new normal, right? But as that's happening, that new business networking is probably not going to be what it was for a long time. So,
Right.
with that being said, what are we doing right now? And I think you've got to get creative. I was having a conversation with an individual regarding Teams, which is on Outlook 365,
Yep.
and their organization really didn't use Teams very much. And then with all this, they talk about technology. They have started using it internally. And as we were having conversations yesterday, they just realized through our discussions, I'm like, oh, you can connect with other people outside of the business. And what if that client who you used to visit every week or every other week that you would, have drinks with, or, you would take out to dinner golfing, you would, be providing some educational pieces. What if in the meantime you were doing this face to face, you're able to guide them through pictures or videos on your screen, or you're just able to sit back and have a beverage and talk with them like you used to? Because you can still do it. The piece about the virtual, no matter if you're using 365, Zoom, Google has their own there's a lot of platforms out there. I was just talking to someone who's been using like 5 or 6 just because the people she's working with. And it doesn't matter, but that the connection that we have by face to face, it's innate. It's what we need, and it helps us. So being more intentional about looking for different ways to connect on that sales side, and continue to at least develop the relationships you've had, and then exploring ideas with your team about how do we now network? How do we get introduced to new people? What might that look like now, not later, right?
Right. I think these are such amazing tips, Michelle. I'm really excited about some of the takeaways, really talking to your employees, communicating clearly, being a little bit vulnerable, and don't forget to ask for feedback. I think that all of those are really great tips. And I'm really excited that we are going to do a survey, because we want to know from our listeners, what does your flexibility now look like? What's your thoughts on remote work? And we are going to do just a super quick 2-minute survey. We're going to pin it to the top of our Chatterkick Facebook page and Revela's Facebook page. Please take the survey, share your thoughts and ideas, and we will come back and actually talk about the findings in an anonymous way in the next episode. So we're excited for that. And Michelle, thank you so much for the awesome discussion today. I think people got a lot of really great information, and we look forward to our next episode.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And next time I want to ask you a few questions too, because I'm
That's great. Well, talk to you soon, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.